different ways, like Bernie said, maybe 3D printing it. Maybe it was built in anti-gravity in a sense where it was built from the top down. Maybe it was built by aliens. Maybe it was built by slaves. Nobody really knows.
No,
But
because
it's an interesting
I think
debate.
I personally think, and a few other guys out there actually think the Egyptians actually inherited the pyramids.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think they were there way before.
1000%. The pyramids and the pyramid building super civilization was pre-cataclysm, pre-Younger Dryas, like Atlantean or before that.
Yeah, and this may piss a lot of people off, but I don't think the Egyptians owned it at all. If they did, they'd know exactly how it works, how it got put together, and how to fix it. And until they can tell me that, it wasn't theirs. They just got there first.
It was deliberately destroyed.
It'll just piss off the official Egyptian historical authorities, and they have their own history to maintain, even though it's been thoroughly disproven now.
See, and that's the thing about me. I don't care who I piss off.
Official Egyptian archaeology has been debunked so badly, it's like pathetic that in 2024 it's still taught in academia.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, no mention of Kemet at all. Hey, if we wanted to talk ancient Egypt, we should be referring to it by its proper name, and that goes back before the 4,000-year history that they're currently promoting.
Yep.
As an alchemist, my main email of Crypto Alchemist, I spell it ELKHEMIST because it's all about its tree.
There you go.
We as a society can move mountains now, and the Egyptians state that there's nothing beneath the sand except for the pyramids. Why don't we move most of that sand just to have a look? I doubt anybody would allow it. There'd be wars over that because the truth would come out.
Oh, you should have seen the major rigmarole for the completely non-invasive muon test. Where they found there was another chamber above the entryway. So just trying to get authorization from the authorities to get a couple of detectors in there. Like I said, completely passive detectors. Unreal amount of hoops they have to jump through, and then of course the authorities also said they have to be the first to gain access to the data, and they'd approve whether it was released, and all this kinds of stuff. Like, why would you care if it's scientific information about the construction of this structure? Why should we have to go through you to release it? In fact, why should we even have to ask for
narrative control? As always, they gotta put their spin on it.
Yeah, I mean, if we were wondering whether or not they were controlling the history and the narrative, then that pretty much tells you flat out in your face right there.
Oh, absolutely. What was the name of that? I can't remember the guy who's in charge of Egyptian antiquity there.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I can't remember.
The biggest Hawass shit in the fucking world.
Yeah, he was a thief, a liar, a manipulator. And yeah, you want to sue me? Go right ahead. I ain't got nothing for you to take. So the way that I see it is that guy was personally responsible for hiding so much Egyptian
world history. Like, it's crimes against humanity that freaking guy commits to this
I
day.
agree. He should be charged for crimes against humanity. Yep, I agree.
Yeah, they're always seeming to hide something. I think personally, in my personal view, there was a great civilization pre-Egyptian era, and it got wiped out completely. And they were the only ones who had the technology to build a structure like that. So the Egyptians eventually inherited it and called it their own, and that's been the narrative ever since. So that's my view. I think there's a great civilization way before the Egyptians.
Because if it was truly yours, wouldn't you want to have it put back to its perfection so that you could be proud of it and show the world, yeah, this is ours?
Exactly.
Just not quite right there.
Exactly, because they don't know what it is for starters, and number two, they wouldn't have any knowledge on how to reconstruct it, how to put it back to its original.
Well, I don't know. There's something sacred, I guess, about leaving the site as it is. mean, Rome didn't rebuild the Colosseum. Greece is not rebuilding some of its
yes and no.
temples,
If it's
so
to some
Well, if
degree,
they-
especially with burials, but we believe those specific pyramids are not burials, and there's no bodies in them to this day, so you can't really
Right.
desecrate them.
It's an
So
energy
I would
generator.
argue it's because they belong to the world, and it needs to be more like shout out to Samir Izvanovich and what he's doing with the Bosnian pyramids and opening up and making it a civilian-led, open to the world. Any civilian can go and do active, real archaeological digs and explorations and real science on it as well. And the
Well,
amount of next level information and discoveries that has come out of that, well, we'll be doing more of that this year.
I agree with both of you. I recant what I said originally. Maybe it shouldn't be put back into working order, but it should be cleaned up and maybe turned into a museum so that we know exactly what it was for, what its purpose was, its intention, and who built it and how it was built.
yeah, hell, they
Because
could
if
at
it
least
was
build a
truly,
small one. I mean, at
but,
least to prove some principles, build a small working model.
Screw
And
that! I want the portal to open.
and you
Well,
could do that if it was all cleaned up and promoted, but they'll never do it because there's things that are being hidden from civilization that they do not want out. Otherwise, why not show it off?
yeah, they don't want people to know that this thing potentially was a giant generator set on a major ley line intersect that would create the global wireless power system that Tesla was having. Tesla was very interested in the pyramids, and in his later years, in his mid to late 70s, he was doing a lot of experiments with quartz crystals and materials that were potentially used in the pyramids. So he had a huge interest in that.
Yeah, it was one of his passions.
Yeah. In his later years, he was doing a lot of experiments
I don't
with
think a lot
that.
of people realize how much Tesla actually traveled around the world and studied
Yeah.
overseas. That guy
I,
moved all over the place just to learn from different cultures about their ancient sciences. He was fascinated with ancient technologies.
yeah.
Yeah, he studied the Indian Vedic texts as well.
From what I understand,
He
Tesla
did.
was at the
Yes, he
pyramids
did.
twice.
Yeah, he wasn't at like a Hitler Nazi drill level of like I have to have all the old artifacts kind of thinking, but he wanted to understand how it all worked.
No, he even had like a yogi or some sort of Eastern or Orient master, like spiritual guy with him for many years. Oh God, why
Edgar
can't I think
Casey, I think it
of
was.
it?
Yeah,
No,
he
no,
was
no,
from
no.
India.
Yeah, no, yeah, an Indian yogi or something, right?
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but yes, he also did Edgar Casey as well, and Walter Russell.
Yeah, he would ask Casey for all kinds of technical information for him to channel solutions for his various inventions that were at the because Tesla was doing stuff that had never been done before. So wherever Casey was pointing his information, that Tesla would ask him about in his hotel room when he was in his final years of doing his design work, and he sort of hit the edge. The stuff hadn't been done before, at least in any modern time. So wherever Casey was pulling that tech from, it certainly wasn't because he had looked it up and read it on the internet or pulled it from a library or something, right? But yeah, he gave Tesla accurate technical information that was beyond what he currently had studied. So I find that interesting. Always have.
That makes a lot of sense from what I got this book, and I can't even remember where I got it from. I think it was from my aunt when I was a kid, and it talks about somebody who knew Tesla and how they were part of this group. Now, I don't know how true this is. It could be a fiction. I don't know. I have to look at the book again. But this group they were in included I didn't know about Casey, which actually kind of
That was in
fits.
his very later years. That's probably why you didn't hear much about it. That's when he was up in the hotel in New York or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was in like his final, I think, 10 years or so. He started consulting Casey. It could have been even less than his final 10 years.
Well, apparently Tesla, Einstein, Steinmetz, My brain just farted. The one that created the light bulb.
Edison.
Yeah, and the one that wrote the books, he was good friends with there.
Yeah, what's that freaking guy's name? Twain, Mark Twain.
Yes, Mark Twain. Apparently they had a group, and because of what you just said about Casey, this is what clicked that memory. Apparently they had a group that would get into seances and all kinds of esoteric
Oh wow!
rituals in order
Almost
to
like
get
a
information.
parallel to the Maria Orsovich,
Yeah,
German
channeling and stuff.
like group.
Channeling was a big thing back then. Now, I don't believe Tesla was getting his information from there, but he was getting confirmations from there, from my understanding.
Right, yeah, Tesla said where he got his information from. He said straight up that none of his ideas are his own, and they come from a point of higher consciousness elsewhere in the universe.
Exactly. So it's just an interesting thing that goes along with what I learned. That's all my point was. It makes one wonder what that group could have accomplished or did accomplish behind the scenes, considering they were all good friends.
Oh yeah, well, every year for Tesla's birthday party, he would throw these parties, and he would give these demonstrations sometimes, but he would have most fantastic lectures that were just for this like private group of 25 or 30 of his best friends. And some of these were really big names. The people that you just mentioned would have been there, along with quite a few others, and potentially investors. But yeah, he'd tell these really, really fantastic stories. It's one of the places I think that's one of his parties where he told the story about how he'd seen through time, and he looked and kind of turned his head and seen three different times playing out. And one of them was apparently far enough into the future where he's seeing the guy with a cell phone in his pocket, or what he described as a handheld video communication device that allowed anybody to talk to anyone else anywhere in the world. And it slipped in the guy's front shirt pocket. So, I mean, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, there was a device he was working on where basically whatever you thought, it would project it on the screen.
I heard about that, but never seen a single shred of evidence towards it, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, so, yeah, same. Yeah. That's one thing I've heard he did.
I heard about that device as well, yeah. Yeah, he accessed it through brainwaves. I don't know how he was able to see him back then, but that was an interesting invention. Didn't it have, I don't know if he had anything to do with Project Looking Glass or not, but it kind of sounds along his lines.
As far as I know, that really didn't have anything to do with him.
No, eh?
I know he had a part in the Philadelphia experiment, but he got out of it really early because he knew it was super dangerous for humans to be in that field. And,
I read some notes on that, on why he got out, actually.
Yeah.
He got out because he redid his calculations and he realized that every single person that was on that ship near those gravity transformers had to be wearing a watch that locked them to the time that they were from. Because if they didn't, what happened, from what we hear, could have happened. Because the watch that was ticking was oscillating at the time that they were born in, so to speak, right? It's at 60 seconds per oscillation, so to speak, and that was how they were getting their I don't know what watch he was using. But anyway, the watches that he wanted to give to every person on the ship, the United States Army apparently said, no, we've already spent enough money on this. We're not going to do that. We don't need it. The math is correct. And he bailed. He said, I don't want nothing to do with this because you guys aren't listening. I've told you, you need to do this. And that's why he bailed. Apparently. I don't know how true it is.
That sounds pretty legit. That's freaking wild.
I found the quote here. Nikola Tesla, my brain is only a receiver. In the universe, there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. I have not penetrated into the secrets of this core, but I know that it exists. And so,
awesome.
Information highway.
It's just like beautiful poetry.
And, I've had so many downloads, and so have most of the people that I work with, that it really makes me think, this is just something that all of us humans can do. It's not you're not born with
Like
special gifts.
Gerald, Jeremiah, myself, all of us have had many own personal experience downloads. Like it's how we get all our
The best ideas, absolutely.
Ideas.
I come up with all kinds of crappy ideas on my own, but the really good ones pop into my head from somewhere else.
I built my coils through dreams. Every one of them. They were all directed through dreams. Certain numbers, certain sequences. Call it what you all. Mendelbrot sets. And I've seen so many things in dreams I can't even explain. I've written them down. I got maybe 20 binders full of notes. But crazy when you access.
Yeah, lucid dreaming is the key to
amazing.
getting a lot of this info.
That's amazing. We got to get Dan Winter on to talk about that here this year in 2024.
Yeah, he's the guy to talk to about that.
I like Dan Winter. He only goes so far, though. He always says that life is, it all has to do with geometrical basis, and that's it. But there's way more to it than that. Who created the geometrical form that created us?
He goes into the plasma and the ball lightning and the lucid dreaming and forming the flame within the mind. And
oh, don't get me wrong, I'm not discounting any of his info. I think he's great. He's smart. I've watched him since he built his first implosion device for water structuring.
Yep. Yeah, he's in Australia.
Shout out to the water imploder.
Yeah, apparently he was doing some work with the guy who made the Joe cell.
Really, that fascinates me. The Joe cell really fascinates me, especially with like the electrolysis experiments I've done and some of like the weird viscosities I've gotten water to turn to. Like I fully believe in what I've seen in investigating the Joe cell. I think it's legit.
Yeah, one thing he was saying with the Joe cell, if he were to drive his car over a railroad track, the Joe cell just shuts off.
Because wow, that would make sense. The resonance, the vibration would just instantly.
It's because the tracks are this huge ground connection that carries telluric currents.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. The track. Yes, the grounding.
I would love to build a Joe cell just to test that.
Who was talking about that earlier today? Someone was talking about that earlier today.
I was talking about telluric currents.
No, it was a different system than the Joe cell. Someone else today, a video I was watching, was talking about when they drove over rail tracks because it connects to this huge ground and it would just ground it out instantly. Oh man, I think it was with Jeremy Reese actually.
And you guys should have seen what happened at the tracks over by my old shop. It was just the most incredible thing I've seen as the aftermath. So,
please do.
Oh, you guys want to hear about this? It's just wild. So, another person that was standing outside, or right by the door to let the dogs out. There was 2 dogs there staying at the time, and they run outside all the time, even when it's storming and whatnot. But they would not go outside at all. They just whimpered at the doorway, and then they ran back inside and started barking at the open door. So anyway, she's like, "Oh, that's weird. I wonder what's going on." And right as she starts to turn to go inside, massive explosive sound just shook the entire building, shook her. She felt it in her chest. So I find out about this the next morning when I get there to the shop. And so I go down by the railroad tracks where she said she's pretty sure lightning struck. And there's a tree that's been completely stripped of its bark and most of its branches. I can see the stump 30 feet from where the rest of the tree is sitting. And this is like a probably 35-foot tall tree. It's a monster tree. It completely blew the thing, and at the base, it exploded the base with so much pressure it tossed the tree. It must have put it at least 25 feet in the air and threw it, like I said, over 30 feet away. But anyways, this is the really interesting part. The track is in sort of a valley. So this railroad track where this lightning bolt struck, and right where it blew the tree off, it sits about 10 feet down beneath ground level on one side and about 4 feet down on the other, because there's a hill on the opposite side that kind of goes up and it's dug out. What happened is apparently this valley, this region beneath ground level, had been filled up with a massive amount of